Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Here we are again. I'm alive.
Yes.
How about that? I'm alive for the New Year.
What?
I'm alive.
Yes, you are alive. Oh, you want to talk about your brush with death?
No, it's not that bad. Well, maybe it could have been that bad.
Well, now you made me
Unfortunately, it's been an interesting New Year. I mean, end of year.
Yeah.
I was most recently sick, ill, hospitalized.
Right before Christmas, actually.
Yes, I got out Christmas Eve. But it caps off a kind of an interesting year.
But he's okay now. No.
Yeah, I'm okay.
They told him he had a pulmonary
embolism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is also a blood clot.
In the lung.
In the lung.
And that is scary stuff, boy. Let me tell you.
No, it makes you kind of look back at things and get some perspective.
Does it?
Well, that's what
some
you
people
wrote.
say it
That's
did.
what you wrote on
No,
Facebook. So
it does. From day to day, it does. But it's interesting. You know, it was kind of a rather harrowing experience. But I'm back, and I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to be doing this again. Mm-hmm. Still getting my energy up. To keep
getting medicated enough to sit up.
Yes.
And not keel over.
Not quite there yet. But the big thing is that every year. You know, last year we did highlights of like the market conditions and the market stats for the year.
Yes, this was a weird year when it came to real estate.
It is. It's absolutely one of the oddest we've seen in quite some time.
And you've been in this business for over 10 years now. I guess about 15 years. You've been in the real estate
scary.
business?
Yeah, it's been about 15 years. And this is and we're going to go into the details, but this is going to be like the first cycle change. We actually see markets go through cycles, and it seems like I would say we're in relatively safe space now to say we're in the end of an upward cycle and we're more into a little bit of the tailwind.
Right.
So, and we'll get into some of those numbers. It's an interesting year by far, and it's important for sellers and buyers as well to pay attention, because some of the things we're going to be discussing is really going to get into, like, you know, what does it mean, what's this going to look like moving forward, and how it's going to impact them. So it's going to have a lot of, this year is going to have a lot of interesting twists and turns. And I think there's a little bit of anxiety about how much this is going to impact sellers specifically. Mm-hmm.
But it's probably not it's not all negative, and it's I feel like it's more of a kind of leveling out than it is a decline. It depends on the neighborhood you live in, but I don't think I stop short of anyone being alarmed over anything we're going to say, because I didn't see anything that was alarming. Alarmed. Prices did go up last year. They just didn't go up quite as much as they had the past few years. So that's kind of what we're at.
And
we're at right now.
Well, just hit us with the overall numbers for the month of December and tell us where we're at.
Yes. Yes, of course. And the stats report I will post on Facebook by the end of the day, so you can read the full report. The average sale price went down to $588,000. It was ironically, because I posed the question whether it was going to hit 600 by the end of the year. Once Cybor adjusted their numbers for last month, because they change them a little bit month by month. 599,999. So it was $1 away from hitting 600,000 this year. As of last month, it came down a little bit this month.
Michael's watching. Happy birthday, Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael. You're like me. You're over the 3-0 mark now.
Another decade?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to say his age. He wants us to make sure we didn't say.
Oh no, I thought it was okay if you said
he's
for men.
26, I think. 27.
Oh really?
Yeah, sorry.
I just blew it for you. It's not
But happy birthday again. So let's get into the numbers. Keep going.
Yes,
I got you off track.
588,000 last year. At the same time, it was 550,000. So it did still come up considerably. So prices rose 7% this past year in 2018, but in 2016 and 2017, prices rose 11%. So that's a pretty significant, a
little bit of a slowdown
change.
there.
Yeah, slowdown there of 4% over the previous 2 years.
We won't repeat that.
30.
But anyway.
Okay.
The big thing is that there's a couple of numbers that I need to point out in this month's stats that should have us concerned in the least. They should be something we should be looking at as far as like what does this mean for the market? And there's two things that really point out as relevant here. Is
the
months inventory compared to last year is up 51%. Now that is a significant number.
Yes.
So where last year it was about 3, it was very low.
Yeah.
Low inventory situation, high sales situation, and the difference between the sales back then and today is basically December 2018 there was 357 sales. Last December there was 443 sales. So the amount of sales from December till now have dropped significantly.
Last year,
but that's a 100-unit drop off in housing, and that to me is ringing that there's change here. We got to really discuss that. There's change with this, and that's something we need to pay attention.
Especially considering how high inventory still was relatively, because last year we had 1,500 homes on the market.
Correct.
2017 in December, there were 1,500. December last month, we had about almost 1,900.
That's correct.
But,
so about 2,000 last month in November.
It was,
December,
okay, it was
1,800.
Not even, 1,800 versus 1,500. So there were more homes listed, but a lot less sold. So
yes,
basically what that
which
means
actually
is that a lot of
skews a little
homes-
bit of the belief system that low inventory was causing the stall out in sales, or the amount of sales. Like they said that, at one time some of the economists had said, well, sales are decreasing because the amount of inventory is down. That was debatable. I thought it was debatable at the time. I didn't think that demand actually exceeded a certain level, and it definitely was in 2006, 2005, 2006. Reborn when there was 500 or 600 sales and there was a lot of pent up demand.
Right, like the SI Live article, like to say that this is turning into a buyer's market now, and yet inventory actually went down.
But it has some ringing. There's some, but and I wanted to get into this. A lot of what we see today is the shaking out of the Great Recession, and I think people still think that that's a long gone, a foregone conclusion.
Right.
That the Great Recession still doesn't have impacts on the real estate market now, which it does, and I think it's significant.
Well, it wasn't very long ago. I mean, most of us remember that, and especially someone who's a homeowner, I'm sure.
You remember that well.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I graduated college in the worst year, which was 2010, like the worst year you could have
That's
possibly
when you actually
graduated.
started heading up to New York and working here.
Yeah, that's why I was waitressing for like a year after I graduated college. It was great.
So,
Story of many people's lives.
yes,
Anyway.
and then, but getting back to that is now we are at what we call the decline of prices. I think we've finally see. We're on the declining side of the price trend. I'm not saying it's a full decline, but we've kind of not pushed past that 590. It went up a little bit, but it's kind of relatively stable.
No, we didn't pass
599. We haven't passed 600.
Right.
And we've never really passed that since this whole market really started accelerating. But we've kind of floated in between, like those 580s, 590s. It's kind of remained relatively stable as compared to a year ago when that number was significantly rising at maybe 12%.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not.
There's a decline in the pace of the market.
Right. But I think if you separate it into quarters, the final 2 quarters of this year are substantially less activity than the first 2 quarters. So if you were to look at this, at a chart, we'd still be showing that half the year is basically tailing off. So, from about June of this year all the way till now, it's kind of bottomed out. Not bottomed out, but it's heading down that path.
Tell me what you noticed, because you always get the expired listings in Staten Island, and kind of for the weekend of New Year's. How does the number of expired listings this year from just that weekend compare to the same time last year?
It's significant. So I would say there's a part of the market that goes on the market with the idea that I kind of want to set the market with my house. So it's like I go on the market, and if I don't get my price, I just don't sell it. So when the market's on an upswing, you can get away with that much more. When it's not, you have to really think: is it, are these houses actually going to sell, or are they going to expire? So
are you clinging to something that's not to be?
So a lot of people go in with the expectation: I'm setting the market. If I don't set the market, it's going to expire. What we've seen is a large amount of contracts this year compared to last year. I'd say it's even higher than about 50% increase. It's got to be about 60% increase.
I think it was between 50 and 60.
Yeah.
Last year there was like 85, and this year I think 175.
Right.
Yeah, for
it was significant.
that time period.
So the significance of it is really something that we've been paying attention to for even the last 6 months. There's been a gradual and steady increase in the amount of homes whose contracts to go on the market are expiring out. We didn't touch on one other thing, which is a leading indicator.
Yes.
You know what that is? Days on the market.
Days on the market, yes. So essentially, days on the market are up again. They are now up to, I have it right here.
It's like 90.
Days on the market are now up to, well, you want to do cumulative days? So cumulative days is...
Cumulative days,
yeah,
so to kind of, cumulative days is sometimes a house will be listed multiple times within a time frame. So it's the accumulation of maybe one contract expiring, another one coming on.
A listing contract with a different agent, or maybe the same agent.
Right. It just means that there's been a re-up of a contract of a house that was already on the market. So that's cumulative days, which I tend to draw more to than anything else.
So yeah, cumulative days is always a little higher than days on the market, which we have been talking about, but this time I think we're going to do cumulative days. 90 days on the market, at cumulative days on the market for December 2018.
Which is the highest since March 2017, I believe.
Nope, look.
Okay.
March 2018, it was 95, but that was an outlier because everything else was below 90 during that time. Last year at the same time it was 81, so it's gone up 9 days.
So I mean, we're seeing it not a full onslaught of the market slowing down, but there's definitely a progression.
Yeah, and
that's what this is kind of indicating. You want to look at these days on the market number and say these are leading indicators into the market. We've talked about this. You want to watch this trend develop over time. So if you're on the market and you see that there's a good real estate people will know the difference of when they're putting on a house on the market, whether these specific trends are going to impact them somehow. So if there's a persistent trend in CDOMs, or what we call current days on the market, what we like to do is like, that's not a healthy sign for what's coming. So usually it's a precursor to lower prices. So people who are going on the market need to pay attention to this. The degree and the drasticness of this is really key to knowing what to do here.
Right, and knowing how to price your home.
Right, especially in a market. I won't say that every single market's tailing, but there's definitely segments of the market that are definitely trailing.
Right, exactly, and that's kind of the key, is segments of the market. If you're close to the Verrazano Bridge or the Staten Island Ferry, not trailing as much.
Well, the Staten Island
Maybe
Ferry.
I shouldn't say the Staten Island Ferry, because that's a different story. After the New York Wheel died.
I lost my mic.
Oh no.
Oh, it's okay. After the New York Wheel, we're basically looking at prices tumbling a bit.
Yeah, definitely slowed down a lot in Seaboard.
You said you noticed them right away. You said.
Yeah, because I was seeing, and I even knew a couple of people that bought in those areas, and prices were just shooting up crazy. But then I saw like a house on the street I used to live on, which was Winter Avenue, a detached house, like new construction, like 2 years old maybe, for $500,000, which is like a lot lower than almost anywhere else on the island for that type of housing.
Right.
So this whole fervor over the Renaissance on the North Shore is kind of
petered out. And that's one of the things that we'll touch base on, the yearly events.
Yeah, so let's use that as our springboard.
Yeah, but we're still not finished. I'm still not finished with the specifics on this market. So basically year over year, we're looking at a total of a 7%, correct?
Yes, 7% price increase
in prices. But I just want to emphasize that when you take the last two quarters into account, it's probably substantially less. So don't take 7% as an increase as something that's moving forward. I do think we're on the tail end of that, and it will progress slower. So I just want to touch on that one point. The other thing we're going to just touch on is that CDOM, or the current days on the market trend, is increasing, and I think people need to understand it's come time to start realizing that there's definitely a growing problem within real estate, that it's just not as healthy as it was a year ago. Price-wise, that does not mean, and I said this before, we get too worried about the numbers going up as a saying like this is a stock market type situation. There's pluses and minuses to all this happening. Affordability is a problem. Affordability starts coming more online. People purchase, people sell. It's not stocks. Housing is not stocks. People live there. So it's a difference. There's still a very, as I say, unless you're someone selling in a market like this, shouldn't be concerned as much as they think they should be, because if they're selling in a market that they're also buying in, unless of course you're moving into another part of the country where of course prices are probably falling even more than here. We tend to have a pretty stable marketplace because of New York City. Right,
we're pretty kind of removed from a lot of the housing crises that happen in other parts of the country that are just completely devastating. Like even in the recession,
some things are still pre-recession levels, like as far as prices are concerned, like some parts of New Jersey still have not reached 2005, 2006 levels at all. So there's still parts, especially in South Jersey, as you start heading like by Atlantic City over there, Cumberland County, you don't see prices there have not even recovered from the Great Recession. We're quite a bit above that.
Yeah, metro areas, especially New York, are still always.
I think in general, markets. Right now we're probably about 12 to 15% above where it was when we were at its peak. So we've definitely went past the peak of 2005, 2006.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, well, last month was a record-breaking number. We had a few of those this past year, and yet inventory is up, which is so weird because that's the kind of contradicts supply and demand.
Do you want me to elaborate on why?
Yeah, sure. Why do you think inventory is up but prices are up too?
People who are seeing the market, happens every time the market accelerates. You get the people who put their house on the market to set the market. In other words, they don't have the intent to sell. If anything changes, it has to. These are what I call the absolute best scenario sellers, meaning I'll try. If it works out, I'll move. If not, I stay. So there's a sense of confidence that if I can get my number, I'll move because the market's heading in that direction. So that's going to be the interesting part about this whole thing, is whether or not people are going to say, hey, are we going to see a decrease in inventory again? Because I believe at the end of the day, when we look at the inventory numbers, something much different than in years past, which is I think we may see inventory drop again because people aren't going to feel they could set the market on their price, which will bring up a very unique situation.
Right.
Just make no bones about it. If you're a stats person, you like stats like I like stats all the time. Anybody who's giving you numbers based on historical factors is completely off. Most of the things I hear and see is completely out of line with the realities of it. That it's different. It's a different mindset with housing and setting prices. It's just a whole different.
There's so many factors, and the economy's not the same.
Yeah, and that's why and the thing that stuck out to me most was this idea that housing sales were flattening out because there was a lack of inventory, which I thought was completely erroneous. I didn't think that was the case at all. And now that I look at it, it clearly shows that that's not the case. I really don't think it was ever the case. And it's, the ebbs and flows of this have not been following historical type of modeling that you would say housing prices would typically follow. There's a lot of oddness to the market still. So I don't think a lot of things have settled out from the time of the Great Recession until now. So it's interesting. It's definitely interesting to read these numbers. We've been doing this for a long time. Holy, how long?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, these live videos for you know.
Yeah, but we were doing
years
stats
right
reports
now.
in 2010.
Yeah, no, I was doing them. Well, I came in 2013, so I was,
2000, right.
I was like
You.
2013, and then they had been written, I think, before I
Yeah.
came on board
Mhm.
too.
It's just been an interesting time for just monitoring stats. So
Yeah,
I know them back and forth pretty much.
the average sale price was under 400 at the time. I remember.
Yes, in 2013, under 400 to almost 6.
Get a nice house for 400,000. Yep.
Yeah, well, strange times,
You'd be
strange
lucky
times
if you
indeed.
could get like a nice townhome for that now.
Yeah.
2-bedroom.
Yeah, prices. Like I said, we actually did the figures, but we can get into all that. How much you actually save, even with these numbers going down. I don't think people realize it's not that much.
What do
You know, on a $580,000 sale, when we talked about the list to sell ratios, at the height it was 97.1. Now it's 99.
No, at the height it was 98.5.
98.4.
I found 98.5.
Let's see.
See?
She's always going to debate me. Oh, I knew it.
In February
So
2017.
it's like $11,000
Yes,
discount.
so exactly.
on the
If we
sale.
had basically,
If on a $580,000.
if we had a house that's $580,000 with a list to sell ratio of 98.5 rather than 96.4, that's about an $11,000 difference. So not enough to hold out, in our opinion, on listing your house.
No, I don't think so at all.
No.
I think it's so minor, but people kind of take these things and it's like, is it going to be the difference? Like
Should
I
I
said,
scoot this up? It's starting to slip.
is it?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
tell a joke or something. Stall. You got any jokes?
There she goes. She's fixing it.
I know. You don't have anything, do you?
See, that's the beginning of the year maintenance that we always forget.
I didn't want it to cut your head off.
Yeah.
Or a little crooked. Oh, I think I made. Okay, that's better.
And now
And
I'm
now
going
we're
to scoot over.
back. Scoot over this way.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, live video, folks. Nothing like it. Hey,
Yes.
hey.
And I am going to just tighten that up a little
Oh
bit.
yeah, so it doesn't do that again.
See, that's what happens when
No.
you use this tripod for 1,000
We're in the
things.
frame like we should be.
Yes. So anyway, this year, tell me about this year and what's happened.
This year,
We're a
so
little
yeah.
recap of the
Let's
year's
take a
kind
little
of
break
news.
on the numbers and just talk about some big things that happened in 2017. And the big one, particularly in the real
Well, before I
estate.
even start this, what's your 2019 resolution?
I don't do resolutions.
She's so boring sometimes.
I know, I'm so boring because I can change my life any day of the year. I don't feel any different than I did on December 31st.
There's no specific resolution?
No, if I want to change something in my life, I'm not going to wait till January 1st to do it.
Well, you can't change the fact that you can't marry yourself.
I can't marry myself.
You said you could change anything day to day.
I don't even know what that means.
Never mind.
Don't. I don't need to marry. Marry's an outdated institution, people. You had to go there. Okay,
So
why,
anyway.
do you have any resolutions?
I have plenty. One is to get my lungs in order so I can breathe again.
One is to not die. Yeah, how about
Yeah, that's pretty morbid.
that? It's a good one, though.
Yeah,
Good
I'm with you,
resolution.
Hannah. Yeah,
Very right. I don't know. I don't feel any different than I did in December.
I know. This is a millennial thing. It must be.
I feel more like that with birthdays than New Year's, I think.
But then you need to change something on your birthday? A
Yeah,
resolution?
because you're a year older, whereas it's kind of arbitrary where the New Year falls in your life.
Okay.
I don't know.
I have a new.
What?
My New Year's resolution is to never, ever eat sweets again.
Really?
But I already failed, so.
I was gonna say so. No Reese's peanut butter cups for.
Doctor says you got to stay away from that stuff. It clogs your veins.
Yeah, but
I'm
fat
like,
clogs your veins more than that.
No, sugar does. But anyway.
Hydrogenated oils.
So this year has been an absolutely nutty year on Staten Island,
Yeah,
like
that's
everything else.
Usually nutty here.
And the biggest thing is on the wild side of things, all these projects that we come to know in Staten Island, they're gone. They kind of hit a wall.
all of
Let's
them.
say the story of the year for Staten Island is the wheel.
Yes.
Right,
The wheel,
we'll
there's probably two
consider
big
that.
ones here. So
I think it's the wheel.
In the real estate sphere especially, was finally just ripping off the Band-Aid and announcing that the New York wheel is dead. And we waited for that for a long time because we knew it was coming. Signs were not looking good. It was sitting in storage for $250,000 a month, people. That's how much they were paying the
They were just waiting for a doctor to take its pulse.
Really?
But everybody else.
So that really kind of...
Do you know anything about the status now? Like, what are they doing with all this? Did you do any research on that?
There are like people that are still trying to save it. I know that that are still like advocating,
GoFundMe?
trying to get this. No, like get the city.
Patreon?
Get the city to step in and like hire a new developer for the wheel.
Get the city to step in.
Because wasting $400 million wasn't enough. Apparently, they need to waste more.
Yeah, get the city to move in, and you'll really find out how much waste.
Yeah, start using taxpayer money to waste instead.
Right.
Isn't that
so
better?
whatever this costs, this will be the literally the bridge to nowhere, the wheel that never turns.
The wheel that never gets built.
I mean, it's just it's.
We have aerial of it. It's just like these two little legs.
Anybody have a take on that? What do you think about the New York wheel? What do you think should go there now?
Nothing.
Huh? Anybody have any idea? Give us an opinion.
Roller coaster.
Yeah, the Staten Island roller coaster.
Yes, you can see the city from the top of the roller coaster. Have it that.
Right.
So that was the big, I guess.
That's the big news story. Yeah, that's the big. The second biggest one
was Max Rose getting elected. I think.
Yeah, I think it is too, to a degree. We had a very odd congressional race, which was a really big upset by most people's standards.
Yeah, and he still won by 5 points, which is pretty significant. It wasn't like a couple thousand votes.
Yeah.
But basically, what we observed with that was how savvy Max Rose was with his digital marketing campaign.
Digital marketing.
Oh my God, he's everywhere. I know you saw him.
Yeah, I mean it's insane.
Every time I turn around.
When your kids know who like.
Yeah,
who's
his
running
11-year-old knew who he was.
Yeah, that's not common.
When I was 11, I had no idea who a representative even was.
Like YouTube was like completely killing it, but it was an interesting story. One of the more interesting ones on Staten Island.
Yeah, being a swing district.
Being Republican held seat for
a long decade.
Yeah, for decades.
For a really long time.
It was quite a bit.
But he appealed to the kind of the anti-establishment demographic, which has always been pretty big in Staten Island.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, that's one of the things that seemed to be a theme, not just here, I think around the world. Mm-hmm. The anti-establishment, whether right, left, or center, it doesn't even matter. I think people in general, this is the year of a lot of change. And I don't really see, and we basically, the stock market, Anthony Stallone. How you doing, Anthony?
Hey.
So I think it's a year of change, basically, and I think it's going to be an interesting 2019, that's for sure. I think there's some things, the general economy haven't really played out fully. I think we have some things that, France is in the state of disarray.
Yeah.
The EU, Brexit. It's a wild time internationally. Mm-hmm. And based on these elections that we've had here, it's definitely, there's something brewing, and it's going to be quite an interesting time this year. So that's one of the things in that election is it kind of established the fact that the mood of anti-establishment is definitely swept even locally. Mm-hmm. And we'll have to see how that goes. I mean, even for these next few election cycles, I still think that the theme will be. We're going to see a lot of changing of the guard, probably things that we haven't seen in a while. The next big thing is
event-wise,
the St. John's Villa closing.
Yeah,
I think with the status of that we don't know about, but here's what I'm telling you. We need to pay attention to, like, a lot of people are interested in what's happening to that property now.
Yes.
So what's the fate of St. John's Villa and the property associated with it. Now it's officially closed. It was a huge story, an institution on Staten Island for, I believe it was 100 years, mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit longer, closing its doors. Again, filling this void of private school enrolees. Where do they go from here? It's an interesting, as Staten Island has grown, schools have closed, so it's like there's a lot of pressure on the public school system to match up with. So there has been some expansion of the public school system here.
In the last few years.
Yeah, so adding seats and things like that,
But this was a high school, correct?
No, St. John's Villa went from...
Was K through 12?
Yes, K through 12. So, I mean, it was, you know, I believe it was somewhere on the order of maybe 1,200 kids total. I can't be so sure.
Pretty small.
But it was rather small, but it was shrinking. The populations for private schools have declined.
Right.
And this has been the issue with keeping up with the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's become less affordable for middle-income people to send their kids to private school.
I mean, with houses costing $588,000.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
having extra money to send your kids to private school is more
affordability
difficult.
has become an issue even for private institutions, and you know that's becoming an issue for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. But it's
but no one really knows. I think the latest I saw what's going to be done with that property.
I don't have any official word on it yet, but we'll be looking into that in a future broadcast that we're doing here. The other thing is, well, I mean, the end of the year left us with absolute chaos, and definitely a story of the year. And you know what that is? The storm that struck on November, the weekend before
Thanksgiving.
The week before Thanksgiving, that Thursday. That's exactly a week prior was absolutely
horrifying for the city.
Will go down as one of the top 5 or top 3 worst commuting events in New York City history.
Everybody remembers where they were. I certainly do. I mean, what ended up happening to you that night?
Oh God, I was stuck. It took me. I didn't get home till about 11 o'clock at night, being stuck in New Jersey for a very long time. A very long time. So
they finally opened the bridge again because they.
Yeah, everything was closed off. Everything was dead, stale, stopped. That was it, done. And a lot of people, a lot of anger that associated with it. Now, if you go out in the street, and even like a day like today, it's like you'll see salt spread. Now, salt spreaders are spreading salt, even when there's no chance of snow, like a 30% chance. There are spreaders out now, ready to go, because you know the next election's coming up, so.
Oh yeah.
The scandals that are rocking New York City right now
are definitely in the front of that whole discussion. But
did you see that? Did you happen to see that latest report that someone was funding private donations into the city, and they had a spot in one police plaza, like a private citizen had a spot because he made contributions. They literally gave him his own private spot in the police in the main.
Well, I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not.
Insane. But it's one of the craziest stories of capping off. It's like this didn't happen in New York, 5 years ago.
Previous.
I mean, even 2 administrations. It's like the old days of the 70s rolling around. What else are you going to find?
Go back there. Yeah. Crime is up. We don't even.
No, crime is up. Is it up?
No, it's up a little, like a tiny bit over the last year. Not significantly, but I think it's gone up a little bit.
Yeah, violent crime is still considered to be very. Violent crime in New York City is still
still considerably.
It's nothing like it was in 1980. So anybody who wants to make references.
1970s.
Yeah, no.
People get in a tizzy and they're like, oh, crime's at an all-time high. Like, sure. Read a little bit about New York and some of the neighborhoods in the 70s and 80s.
New York is definitely.
It's one of the safer major cities, actually.
It stinks a little bit more than usual. Yeah. It's not a sanitary. I think that's probably the biggest difference. But that was one of the other big stories. That wasn't even.
It was forecasted to be like a half an inch of snow or something. I leave my office and my car's covered in this much snow.
So with this, I know you said Staten Island Mid-Atlantic champions went to the World Series.
Yes.
They didn't win.
They did not win, but it was a big deal. They did win the Mid-Atlantic State Region Championship and went on to the Little League World Series, where they lost to Georgia. So
now we're going to do something that's actually going to surprise Hannah. Because I like to surprise. Look at her face. Predictions for this year, real estate market given to me.
Yeah.
What do you think? You've been doing these stats a while. What's your take?
You know, I want to go back to the last year and say we had these moments where we would see prices fall and we kept looking at high inventory and thinking that prices were going to keep falling or that they were going to level out. We said that time and time again, and then they continue to rise. So what I'm looking at, you know, the what I mentioned earlier, the 11% increases, and then last year being 7% increase. I feel like maybe this year might be like a 4% increase over last year, if we look at what those trends are, prices.
Yeah,
or stay the same. I don't think they're going to fall.
Yeah, I think we're in a stabilizing market, and I think what I'm going to say is that the baseline number for the year will be flat. Flat, maybe a percentage or two lower. There's no really systemic issues that I see that are big enough to impact it on a larger scale, so I don't expect a fast decline. The interesting thing is, my prediction for this year is that we're not going to have the decline that we had back nowhere near, so everybody needs to relax. There's a lot of stuff out there that's kind of putting fear and panic in people. It's very easy to jump on the fear bandwagon, but a lot of things that are in play right now don't seem to subscribe to the same process happening again. So I think people need to be eased up on that fear. The biggest thing though that I do see is the lack of international money in the local markets are now beginning to take place.
A lot. Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to tell you is that with the lack of international money being funneled into the United States' real estate market, this, for the most part, is primarily where the drop is coming from. Okay?
Because this is the segment that's kind of been driving prices up, is international investments.
Yes, international investments here have been stable investments in the past. China has now decided that you cannot take money out of China, or 25,000, which is something that didn't happen before. And the ringing impacts is that you dry up a source of demand on the marketplace. All of a sudden, boom, you get this new kind of slowdown. The question is, and we're really going to get to the question, is how much of the percentage of the market is really adjusted to this international money being removed, and is it significant enough to cause a downturn, more than just a couple of percentage points. I still don't think it's as a systemic a problem as bad mortgages, or in that case. So we're nowhere near that, but I expect that things to slow down. And if you are selling this year, not just experience, have things explained to you very, very detailed about what's going on. You're going to be frustrated. A lot of sellers get frustrated very quickly. Activity is slow, they get frustrated, and if you're not in line with the trust levels that's going to be required to make a sale with, or you don't feel like you've got to do your homework here. The smarter people know what the stats mean, what it's going to mean for them, and how to adjust it correctly. So they have to be smart enough to know this is the numbers, and based on what I know in the past, and based on what I'm learned from doing this a few years, is where is this going? How is this going to? Because if someone walks into the door and says, I have this happen, they're in a market that's tailing. Let's take Pleasant Plains, for example. It's tailed off a little bit. There are houses that are in contract or just closing now that some houses are being listed at. So like the listing price is lower than the contracted prices. It's now that's a downturn there in terms of like activity.
Mm-hmm. And also, since you mentioned looking at numbers, I think it's important to say too that a lot of times numbers can be misleading if you don't look at them correctly, or if you just look at some numbers. Because I know one of our agents was telling me, she doesn't understand why prices are up, and yet she and all of them really have witnessed decreasing activity. So I think homeowners are going to look at, prices are up over last year, so why can't I continue to price my home higher and higher? Look at the expireds, people.
Right.
You need to know that.
Yeah, I mean that's always the common denominator against many of homeowners that I speak to and have dealt with, is that it comes down to, am I getting the most? And a lot of times, and when the market's challenged like this, you do take a beating. you take a beating as an agent to say, hey,
Yep.
what are you doing?
Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I mean, it leads to a lot of, not to say that some of this stuff isn't justified, some of it is. We looked at photos and we could say that clearly some of this stuff is justified. But, and you need to pay attention to the marketing.
But if your agent is
Folks,
being honest,
that's the number one thing.
listen.
I'm telling you right now, I still to this day, there's an amazing disconnect between like the houses that are going on the market and the marketing that's associated with the housing. Either someone's ignorant to the whole thing or it's just a disaster.
We're just going on tangents now.
I mean, yeah, it's just, please.
we saw some photos
Yeah,
today
it's
that were
just-
so bad, and it's just on his mind.
Anyway, but
Make sure
with
your
that,
agent is smart and knows what they're doing. Essentially, is the takeaway.
yeah, just like you can't
Make
just
sure they
leave it
know
to
the
chance.
market and that they market your house well, and don't resent them for telling the truth.
That's my New Year's resolution. I hope not to be resented for telling the truth.
That's a good one.
How you think that'll work?
Yeah.
Anyway, well, with that, we will be doing a few more segments, and I'll probably be a lot less pale. I'll be a little bit more healthier,
I hope
hopefully.
Because we want to start doing these every week consistently, and
Yes.
we need you healthy to do that. So.
Yeah, well, I don't like collapse on camera.
So yeah, get some rest.
But we'll be touching on a few interesting subjects that I think that deal with the challenges in the marketplace and how to kind of adjust to them. But with that, I want to thank you again for watching some of our rambling. I think we rambled today a lot more than we used to.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. It's the end of the year.
Yeah,
Recap.
it's like jumping around a bit. But I'm glad you tuned in, and thank you for
Yes,
watching,
thank you
and
for
we
watching.
appreciate it. And
Hope it
we
was
look
helpful
forward
to
to
you.
another great new year, right?
Yes, another very interesting 2019. So we'll see what the next quarter brings, and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah, have a great weekend, all.
Have a great weekend.
Watch those NFL playoffs.
Bye.